I mentioned before, the measuring bar that was taken from the pyramid now resides in the Louvre Museum in Paris, France. It's called the meter bar. So the all world measurements are now done against the measuring stick that was found in the pyramid that was used to lay out the pyramids. Now, beyond what I just showed you, the length of each side of the base is equal to 365 sacred cubits, an equivalent of the length of the year in days. The two diagonals of the base contain 25,824 pyramid inches, a good approximation to the number of years in the precessional cycle, which is called the Great Year. This shows not only that the Egyptians knew that the earth was round, but they understood the structure of the universe and the precession of the sun, taking its planets with it through the part of the universe in which we live. So that the European views and all their science came out of their basic view that everything in the universe was separate. And all the mistakes they made was based upon that presumption. It was understood in Africa from time immemorial and inculcated in everything Africans did that everything was one, that everything was everything. This is some of the background to the ideas that were in the world at the time that Darwin did his work. And with that, I'm now going to move, I'll ask Brother, as I set up for the film, I'll ask Brother Kaba if he'll collect the donation. And if you turn the lights back on for a moment, I'll also talk for a moment about the DVD. Brother Kaba? Okay. Question? Brother Irby?
Yeah, I just want to add, you said the Europeans said, I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
The Africans said,
Have light for me, please.
I feel, I think, therefore I am. Which brought in a total different perspective of humanity. I would say, I feel. The European, they just said, I think, therefore I am. Which means he saw humanity only as a thinking being. The Africans said, no, we feel.
I like the statement even better. I am because we are.
Yes, sir. I was saying the same thing while he was talking. Yes, sir.
Because that then says very clearly that, as I said before, in order to be judged human, I can't do that by myself. In order to be judged human, that can only come from my interaction with another human who declares me human based upon how I have treated him. That's a standard that a lot of folks in society have a real hard time with.
Definitely.
They can call themselves human. They can say on their own that they're somebody. But now, would your actions and how you've treated other people demonstrate that? And in many cases, no. Let's look at the current situation in France. The North Africans live out there in the suburbs, in ghettos. They don't live downtown in the high rises and fashionable homes in Paris that the European French people have. The standard, the African standard says they would have to go ask those people in the ghettos whether they're treating them right, whether they can be judged human or not. I would suspect that the folks living in the ghettos would not feel too good about the people living downtown. Just as I would suspect that during the civil rights period, if you had to go and ask, Rosa Parks how she felt about, some of those rednecks down there in Alabama, Mississippi, they wouldn't fare very well. Their conduct would have convicted them. So the standard, that you have to be judged by how you treat other people is a very, very rigorous standard. Just think about your daily life as you move through life. You deal with district government, or you deal with a bus driver, or you deal with people in the street. Deal with your family members. How many of them could pass the test? Or make it even more plain, how many times during the week could you pass the test of being human? Based on how you treat the people around you. That's a very, very strict standard. But that's the standard that was conceived by our ancestors, by our forefathers. Brother Hayward, yes.
Just like to make a comment to what you two have said. Thank you. In regards to what you two have said about humanity, what I have found interesting, and it confirms what you two have said about the African lifestyle, and that is when you talk with Africans, they will say, and a lot of you probably heard this, that when they're raised in Africa, in the village, that you're raised as brothers.
Yes.
Even though you're not brothers, but they're raised as brothers. And then there was one young African who came here, and I think he was going to Howard or somewhere, and he introduced his father. He had two men who came with him, and he introduced it as two fathers. And Americans couldn't understand. Well, you can't have two fathers. But he says you have to understand, the way I'm raised, he says, yes, this one is my uncle, but he's a father to me because of the way we live. And I think that goes back to what you said, I feel.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. I think to me it was a lesson to me.
You remind me of two things. One, let me take you back to roots. Kunta Kinte is approaching 13 years old. He's in his family's hut. All of a sudden, a cover's thrown over his head. He's snatched up, taken out into the woods, the field, the forest, where he now finds himself with all the other approaching 13-year-old young boys. Why are they out there?
You're ready to go through rites of passage.
Getting ready to go through rites of passage. What's that now called in Hebrew culture? Bar mitzvah. So now when you read the story of Jesus in the Bible, and his parents go to the temple, they're on the way back home, they miss him, and they retrace their steps, they go back to the temple. He says, didn't you know I'd be here? Now when my preacher talked to me about that, he said, of course he's God. He was in the temple instructing the scribes. That made sense to me. I was dumb. I didn't know anything different. Now it's probably more reasonable to me that as a 12-year-old boy approaching 13, he was in the temple preparing for bar mitzvah. That'd be the natural and normal thing for 13-year-old Hebrew boys to be doing. So our understanding of things we've seen and heard about all our life comes from our cultural perspective. The Europeans gave me their perspective. It made sense because I knew nothing else. But once I understand the African cultural perspective, then I can now look at the religion that I was taught and see things in it that the people who were teaching me didn't see. You can.
Still on?
Yes.
Just you talking about Jesus at 12, 13. You don't happen to have any reasoning for that gap between then and then 30 coming back, rediscovering 30.
Yeah, I do. I won't discuss it today, but yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Sister?
Yes, I wanted to add to what the Baba said over here, his brother said
Speak up just a little bit.
about calling the African brothers or
Mm-hmm.
family members brothers. The book I'm reading by Dr. Malodoma, Patrice Malodoma Somé,
Yes.
of Order of Spirit. There's a fella in there where Malodoma was talking to his grandfather. His grandfather was telling him about names, and his grandfather chose to call him brother because he was giving him a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
But he also explained to him that the reason that he's calling him brother is because of an ancestral connection that he knew in the grandfather's lifetime, that he's affiliated with Melodoma, which is his reason for him calling him brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on to say with his other names that he got them for this reason or that. But it had to do with the African-centered value system and the people they recognized that came before them that were charged with a certain responsibility, and that was he was getting ready to do some more glory and become aware of what his charge was. So I found that really connected.
If you don't understand people's cultural perspective, you can be really confused. I know a lot of Africans, and a girl that I grew up with had another African boyfriend. She's American, African American. She had a number of continental African boyfriends, and one young man was named Tunja, and I like Tunja. Tunja's a nice guy, but I got the impression over a period of time that Tunja didn't like me. Because if the two of them were staying talking and I approached, he would back off 3 steps and wouldn't speak to me. And he'd only approach her again after I left. And after a while, it bothered me. And so I said, Lola, have I done something to offend Tunja? She said, oh no, he has high respect for you. She said, but see, you are his elder. You are his elder, so when you come to speak to me, he's obliged to move out of my presence. And he can only return if you invite him. Now the next time, after she told me that, I said, Tunja, come on over here. Big old smile came on his face. He's happy as a...
Yes, sir.
See, I was totally confused.
Yes, sir.
Because I didn't understand African courtesy. Remember what Herodotus said from last week. He said that in Africa he noticed when the older men came down the street, the younger men stepped off out of the path and bowed. He said, we don't do that back in Greece. You see? A totally different way of looking at people. A totally different level of respect. Brother Cobb.
It's already on.
Oh, well, okay. You go. Thanks.
As you say that about the respect for elders, I was thinking about the whole concept of old folks' homes. I visited one just yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's just really sad the way the elders are just kind of just thrown off somewhere, and it's like you see some of them start going out of their minds, and I mean, and some of them don't even have visitors that even come to see them. I mean, people just kind of warehouse the elders and just kind of wait for them to die.
Yes.
And because I believe we've inculcated a lot of European culture by in our time here, where to the point where we don't even have that kind of respect for our elders. We kind of put them off to the side.
Yeah.
And they oblige you by going ahead and dying. Since you want them to die, they go ahead and die. This culture does not.
He's okay.
You okay? This culture does not honor anybody who's not making money. The very young and the old are pushed off to the side. And that's why, for instance, I look at Marion Barry, and I don't think white folks would ever understand why Marion Barry is beloved so much. I don't think a lot of black folks understand why they care about Marion Barry. But at the heart of it, Marion Barry always took care. Bless you. Marion Barry always took care of the two groups that could not fend for themselves. The very young and the very old. Black folks in this town started going to Kennedy Center when Marion Barry insisted upon it. When Marion Barry insisted that they be able to go to Kennedy Center and put money in the budget to take the elder seniors back and forth to concerts and to other artistic endeavors.
And there's been free concerts ever since, hasn't it?
Yes. Yes. It's automatic now.
It's automatic, yeah.
But that started when Marion Barry came into office. Who is the mic?
I have. I have a quick question about that. I didn't know about that. That's my education, and so I needed to know it. So anyway, it comes to my mind then the question about where Marion was born and raised, and what he was taught by his elders. And it's a question, really. It's not a statement by me.
It'd
Where I
have
come
been
from.
a Mississippi, I believe.
Okay. Where I come from, my grandfather, when he walked into a room when I was a little boy, all his children, who were grown men, including my mother, they all sat quietly. Yet, on the other side of this, when my grandfather walked down the street in our hometown, he tipped his hat to white people. This is the cultural conditioning that you spoke about many times.
Mhm.
Within our own, there seemed to be some memory of the African respect status that you were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Okay, I met two young ladies several years ago from Sierra Leone. Both of them were named Isa too. They presented themselves as sisters. In actuality, they were cousins.
Mhm.
But they were raised in the same village, and the one that I finally got to know quite well, her father was like the manager or the overseer of the entire village. And he had many children, many wives. And as I finally got them to talk with me and let me know things, it came to me that their version of family far outreached or outstripped mine.
Mhm.
And that was a long time ago, so therefore, as I've grown and learned over the years, the most amazing thing is what you said earlier about our inability to understand the cultural construct of white supremacy. The cultural construct of white supremacy is the most diabolically opposed to human evolvement in the whole world. They come out with a plan that's set, not evolving. Yet what they do to non-whites, this is very important, let me try to get it straight, according to Steve Martin, they set up a thing where they evolved their standards of living, which is the enslavement or the subjugation of all non-white people all over the world. So therefore, slavery today has evolved. As I sit here among what I see as slaves. I'm not calling your name. I'm not being mean to you. I speak as one of you. We are slaves.